This webinar is the sixth of a series. It's part of our communication campaign, Achieve Better Milk Together. At Vetoquinol, we aim at working hand in hand with our stakeholders to achieve more for vets and farmers, cows and consumers, which means healthier cows and herds, a better quality of life, and supporting sustainability of meat production. Beyond products, we're aiming at providing solutions to helping solve your and your farmers' pains in mastitis treatment with diagnostics and fit-for-purpose protocols, in mastitis prevention for products and management, tools, and partnership in data management to help you provide attractive services. Our topic today, automated milking systems, so-called AMS, a guide to success and challenges. Our speakers. Before, just why we choose this topic. After having covered major aspects in other health management, we thought it would be worth to focus on specialties that are related to robotic milking. It is important for you as advisors to be able to adapt your approach if necessary. Our speakers, Sophie Piepers from M-Team at University of Ghent, researcher and teacher, passionate about mastitis and milk quality, turning scientific knowledge into practice. And Dr. Joep Driessen from Cow Signals, a company providing advice and very practical trainings for farmers and vets, farm-oriented, boots on the ground. Joep, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very excited to be in the webinar again, guys, and we have a whole group of vets from all over the world joining, and I really love to help you with some practical tips. So what are the benefits and the challenges of robotic milking for udder health? Well, I think I like robotic milking a lot. We see 40% in, if you look at Holland, we have 40% already from the milk coming from robot barns, and actually it's 60% already in Iceland and in Norway. So in Western Europe, it's really a big thing, robotic milking. All the systems are working nowadays. It was a big challenge 25 years ago when the first robot started 30 years ago. But now all the systems seem to be quite successful. They all have some benefits and some disadvantages. The big disadvantage was a multi-box where all the boxes are too close together, and then we had some issues with regular milkings for cows, and most of them are not in anymore. So we see that the single boxes well positioned in the barn have the best result. First question you can answer in the chat box: why do women get 8% more milk from cows? Why do women get 8% more milk? Why? So type in the chat box. It's always more fun when you type it in. Then I don't have to say it myself. Then you can say it. I don't see any chats coming in yet, but find the chat box and give me some help here in the training. It's more fun when you can answer the questions. And the second question is, do the robot have these qualities? Well, you can call the robot female names, but that doesn't help probably. So we say that the robots are very regular. I think women in general are probably better milkers than men because the result is 8% more milk. So what does that mean? That means that actually that they do a better job. And it's mainly because of the voice, I think, and the patience, and not shouting, and a high-pitched voice, more gentle, more softer hands, more friendly, and better hygiene. So women are in most things better than men, but also in milking cows. The robot, the good thing about robots is they're doing the same thing all over again, every time exactly the same. And that's really helping the cows as well. If you look at robot milking, you get a lot of information. Conductivity, color, cell count, and also depends on what type of robot. You also see that they have fever and rumination counters and milk separation options and failure milkings. And I think rumination, quite interesting. If you look at rumination from sensor technology, we find some amazing differences. Have you looked at it yourself? And what is the ideal rumination rate on a dairy farm? Well, probably close to 600, but we measure also farms with 400. So I think, wow, that's a huge difference of 3 hours per cow per day in rumination time. So from the robot, you get a lot of information, and there's of course the sensors, and most information is about the milk, and that's very useful for your management. If you have, for example, a high cell count or high conductivity of the milk, then you see the figures that something is going wrong, and then you can actually react on it by automatic selecting the cow. And that's one benefit that some milk parlors have as well, with automatic selection. So the cow comes out of the robot, she comes around the door here, and she comes in the automatic selection room. She can be treated in this handling facility, and then she can go back to the herd again. So every cow that you need is full automatically selected. And we have the option of a dry cow, a dry off group. And that's another big benefit, which is a lot easier with robot milking, because you can have like 3 or 4 cows behind the robot, and you milk them, they go through here, back to the robot, and coming out back here. And that's what you do twice a day or once a day for 5 days in a row. And the biggest thing is, of course, the feeding, that you dry them off. If you dry them off, you have less other health issues. If you dry them off before dry off, I mean, if you lower the milk from 20 liters to 12 liters, and that's what we do with the dry off group behind the robots. Then you really need a good place to work with these cows, because if you don't have a good place to work, then it will be quite dangerous and not very effective and not very well done. This is one of the most sophisticated, with a hydraulic bridge and an easy step on here and an easy step out. So we see with rubber, the floor is all rubber, all the floors are the same, and the cows easily step up, central positions, the treatment facility in the barn. You really want to have one man in 1 minute treating that cow, because then you have some amazing effect, and you can treat the cow at once right. What we see on farms, that they often do it on the feed fence, or they do the testing of the quarter here on the in a cubicle. And in a cubicle is very risky, because if this was a failure milking cow, very likely she's painful, or she's selected by too high cell count or a lack of rumination, but she's automatically selected. But if it's a failure milking, it can be machine failure. It can also be that the cow kicked off the machine, and that's normally because of pain. And now you're going to check her for cell count or for issues, and that's, if it's in a mastitis, it's very painful. And that's why I don't like you to do it like this while he's standing pretty good here, but it's very dangerous to do it when cows are not standing fixed in some place, because they can kick you. Also, what I see here is damaged hocks and damaged inner hocks on this cow. And cows that are wounded more often have also a lack of resistance, and also a more mastitis risk. So find a good place to treat her, then fix it on every dairy. You need a really good place to do that. Then you look at the teat ends, and in robots, they automatically take off the clusters, or not the clusters, they take off every cup by itself after the milk flow stops. So you have less over milking in the robot compared to milk parlors. It depends, of course, on your settings, but the front quarter normally has less milk, and then they can be taken off earlier automatically by the machine. But still, you have to check if you have any callus forming. This is a risk factor. Also, if your teat cups are the liners are not well enough, or they're not changed often enough, you can have more issues of teat and erosion. The milk flow in robots, that's another interesting thing to look at. Also in milk parlors, but you want them to milk fast and without stress. And if you do always the same prep and the same connecting time, which is normally in the robot optimized, always is 60, 90, or 120 seconds delay in first touch and connecting, well, then you have the good flow, and you get 55%, and you have in 4 minutes 55% in the first 2 minutes, and then you have in 4 minutes time the milking is done. If you look at milk parlors, it's roughly 6 minutes milking time, 6 to 7 minutes, depends also on the settings, and the total box time 6 minutes. That's really nice, because that's a lot less standing time for the cow. So that's a big benefit of robot milking, is the standing time. Another thing for the dry off group is you still see with 21 liters of milk, you see a lot of open teat ends. It's quite shocking, because half the cows have an open teat ends, and that's after 6 weeks. So you really want to have more closed teat ends. Well, if you're below If you are below 21 liters, it's a lot less. But what if you are below 12 liters? You probably are even halfway here. So how low can you go in open T-dance? And I think you probably should go as low as possible. So that's why we really want you to make the dry off group. And that's pretty easy if you design your barn right. So there's a lot to talk about barn design if you talk about robot milking to make life easy for the farmer. I'll give you a few examples in the end. So so the chat is deactivated, I see, so I don't know why, but then we have to do it without chat. You can still try if you see it. Chat is, yeah, okay, not possible. So only the Q&A, guys, we have. So if you look at this cows resting here in Iran, a beautiful farm, one of the things is that you want to have dry, clean beds for your dry cows. And one thing is missing here still is big fans, that you always have dry air drying the beds and cooling the noses of the cows so that they can get fresh, dry air in the nose. The other big risk on every farm, again, is the manure. We don't want manure on the legs because it goes directly to the udder, and also not on the tails. So very often tails are hanging over the edge. So how can we help farmers to do better? And the average bed length is 170 in the world, but cows actually need 200 centimeters to rest with the tail inside. And we want to have softer beds to have more resting hours. So the big benefit of a robot is actually the short milking times. And one very important thing is the teeth spray. I was milking on the brother of Jan Hulsen's farm when he was on holidays. It's quite a while ago. But I was there for 10 days. And then the first day I heard some, I think, what is that buzz? So I checked everything, I couldn't find it. And then at noontime, still the same buzz. And then I realized, oops, check again. And then I realized that there was an empty barrel. So there was no spraying coming out, and that's really a high risk factor. If the robot is not spraying for a day, all the cows have less protection. So we don't have a dipping option in most of the robots. Some of them do, I think, but the spray option can be okay, but you have to be really aware that it's actually doing what it should do and spray all the T-dance right. So standing time is a big one. We see that an average standing time on a large American dairy with 3 times milking, or the same in Europe, can be up to 5 hours. So if you go 3 times milking and you have a small capacity of the parlor, then you have big groups of animals, you end up with too long standing. 5 hours or 6 hours standing, you see sometimes, compared to 6 minutes. So, and while it's not true in a robot, it's 3 times 6 minutes, or it's actually 6 or 5 hours per day. So 5 hours or half an hour is the difference between robot milking and milking in large farms. So a lot more freedom for the cow. It can be a difference of 4.5 hours more free time, and this is normally resting time. So they can make a lot more milk on robot farms. Standing time is lameness, and we don't want that. We don't want standing cows. The other big issue with robot milking is actually lame cows. And in milking parlors, these cows will still walk to the robot. If you drive them, they will still hump and limp into the robots. But you really want them to walk by themselves. So if you have less lame cows, you have less work to do. So I like to think about the 3 S words for lameness. Why do cows get lame? There's 3 S words. And what are these S words? What do you think? So it's actually very simple. It's standing, slurry, and stress. If you keep it simple, this is our hoof signals training. If you want to really understand hoof signals, I think most farmers and quite a few vets don't really bring the message over well enough to farmers, because lameness is the biggest Achilles heel of the whole dairy industry. And we have 25% lame cows, so we really have to work on that to also prevent mastitis and also prevent other diseases. But especially in robot farms, you have to do even better, because otherwise you have to pick up cows and bring them to the robot, and that is costing you time, and that's not the idea of robot milking. So standing on concrete, slurry, and stress are serious problems for hoof health. So what can you do? You want to have as little stress as possible, soft deep beds, and cleaning the floor very regularly, that you have less manure on the hoofs. Then an interesting question to ask you is actually, why is a robot not the best place to milk the heifer for the first time? Why is a robot not suitable I would say most robots, almost all robots, are not suitable to milk a heifer for the first time. And that is right now, this heifer. And this is a top robot farm in Finland. There's the #1 in the country with 45 liters. I think he's at the moment he's just under 15,000 liters per year. I was just visiting this farm last month. Amazing guy with his brother and his father doing a really good job. And they milk every cow here. First, all the heifers, and they were astonished by the effect. And then he also started to do all the cows in this position. So this is a 3-robot farm with 150 cows, but he milks every heifer right here. So why is a robot not the best place to milk the heifer for the first time? Well, it has several reasons. One, it gives stress, and it's a place where she probably has never been. So you can work on that by training them. But if they are the first time in that robot, it causes them a lot of stress. And therefore, they hold up the milk. They don't give adrenaline, stops the flow of milk, and then you don't have enough oxytocin. Secondly, there's rest milk in the system very often. And thirdly, not all the milk is coming out. So you lose liters of colostrum in the system. And you mix it with waste milk from another cow. And that's not really good to give to a calf. So it depends very much on your system. So some Finnish farmers have been making a special outlet in the robot tank, directly where the milk comes in the glass. They make an exit directly to put a bucket here to get the colostrum milk directly in the bucket and not going to the system along the wall to the other dumping bucket, which is never clean. So the dump buckets are never clean enough unless you do a great job in cleaning them. So there's a lot of hiccups if you milk this cow the first time in the robot. So we recommend to do it here. And the best farmers already do this with the baby in front of them. And this has an amazing impact because now we see that every heifer has 4 to 5 liters colostrum. And before, on farms where I have been testing this, very often they complain that they only have 1 or 2 liters. So part is the stress and part is the system is not good enough to get colostrum out. So stress-free stockmanship is another art of doing it. If you can bring the cows with less stress in the robot, you can really have some good effect, and you have more easy milking as well. So we made a special book and video learning of stress-free stockmanship skills. I would really recommend you to watch it. It's very interesting stuff. So if you do everything within a half an hour, I would say a half an hour after calving, then you have the best results for also for lack of mastitis, but also for a better start of the cow and also a better start of the baby. We claim 50% less disease levels in cows and babies just because of the cuddle box system. And of course, grouping a group calving in a big straw pen with a group is also one of the success factors. So how many cows can actually calve quietly and be directly milked here on the spot? Directly 4 liters in the baby. This has an amazing impact of the health of the cow. And if you milk her out empty completely, then she's also more hungry. She starts eating, so she's also have less risk of she has more appetite, so she starts eating more, and less risk for mastitis if you milk her empty completely. So this is how it looks like. He just changed it 90 degrees for the good observer. He was first had the cow here and the baby here, but then he said it's easier to milk from this side. So again, barn design is really essential. Now this gate has to be changed, that it's actually hanging from this side, that he can milk safely under the cow. So safe milking is one of the big benefits here on doing this. And then you see after the second time, they go to this robot here, and then they have to be transported to the robot on that side. So you want to be a win-win advice from vets to farmers. You really want to reach your farmers. And how do you do that? Well, to give them practical tips. This cuddle box system that we designed. We also make now this very special bucket to make farmers aware of that they can use a bucket to give feed to the cow and use the same bucket or another bucket to give water to the cow. So water and feed right after calving. These are the practical tips that farmers need. And I think if you are a win-win, you want to have a big win-win from your advice, I think one of the simple tips is that you advise on housing management and barn design even. I think that's where there's a big role for vets because the health is a lot more dependent on housing management, feeding and barn design than on medicine use. And we are so trained in getting medicine for everything. You still need medicine, and that's that we never get out of medicine. So you always need treatments, but you want to at least use as little as possible. And you really want to be a good advisor for the farmer. So if you can help the farmer with good advice, then you are a friend forever, and then you can also be the preferred medicine salesman for the future. So trying to do the right thing for the cow. So robot milking. Another interesting question is how to milk the cow and then the second milking, because the second milking he still has to go into this robot, and that's still gives you a lot of stress, gives the cow quite a bit of stress. So you want her to go in easily. What you can do is you're gonna reach her from this side. Don't go behind the cow. Make a chain around here and trying to let the other cow go first, then she can follow, or you can actually go from the front side and walk along the shoulder. When you pass the shoulder, she'll step in by herself. And if that doesn't work, you can even scratch her on the back 3 times, or you make a virtual wall in front of her head. You see my face here. If you do this for a cow, she doesn't see anything. She sees a wall. So you create a virtual wall, step back, and then she walks in. This is all great stuff from Bud Williams from Texas, who designed stress-free stockmanship. And you can have her in without stress. You see she's looking around you because you're standing right behind her, which is the wrong place to be. So how does that look like? You really want to build a good barn, and then you need a stress-free calving line and automatic selection from both robots. Here's a separation room, automatic selection. And here you normally place a foot bath, and then you can have some really good effect. And this is a one-man business for 140 cows, 120 cows milking, 2 robots, and 20 dry cows. So 140 cows with full grazing systems if you want, with walkout for the dry cows and walkout for the close-up cows, and a calving pan here with a cuddle box in the corner. This is how we, this is the fresh cow pan. This is the calving pan here with the cuddle box. And if you do this right, amazing success can come to health and longevity. And we see that we have designed many of those barns around the world now. And we see this became the new standard in robot milking. I'm very excited about it. And we won some innovation awards. But the thing is, how can you stress-free milk those cows in this robot? And therefore, we designed this double entry where you can put a cow behind here, and she can go around the corner with an extra swing gate. And also very smart pipes here that you can bring her next to the robot, and one cow can always be ready to go in. And you don't want to get more than 5%. A lot of people think, well, how many cows do I have to fetch? Normally, it's only 1%. Normally, 1 old cow or 1 fresh cow, it has to be fetched in a robot barn if you have everything well organized. So it's about thinking about your barn design. And if you put robots in an existing barn, which is going to happen quite a lot in the future, you really want to put them on the outside of the barn. And if this is the existing barn, this is the existing barn on the left, you have to put robots and separation space, treatment space, and calving area extra. So don't try to fit everything in an old barn. It's not going to work. The robots on the side, you build an extra roof for the necessity things to have like the maximum labor efficiency. So how does it look like? Especially calving line. And in the back you see the treatment facility. And here you see the swing gate, the practical fetch gate. And here you see in front of the robots the cross scrapers. It's quite interesting how they design these cross scrapers here. It's quite technical, but I think you might like to see it. And then here you see that they have all the gates free hanging here. Everything is free hanging, that you don't have risk for lame cows. And the cross scrapers are cleaning the area full automatically. So if you build a new barn, you have to think what you're doing. And if you do a retrofit, you have to even think more what you're doing, that you have all these options like selection and a stress-free calving and a cuddle box position in place. This is the cuddle box area here, and calving on straw. So a good design is half the work, and now you have the maximum labor efficiency. We also do it with eight robots. We have now already 32 robots built. There's just 4 times this barn that you're looking at now. And we normally put them in a corner position, the robots, and then we have 4 groups of 120 cows. And very important, I think my time is up. Then the corner position here is a very nice barn in the Netherlands. Don't make these posts in the back of the beds. You can't make them clean anymore, but you really want to have free access to the robot easily, and automatic selection with a foot bot around the corner here, and a very good hoof trim box. I would like to invest in a more expensive one than this one because you want to make your life very easy. And on 120 cow dairy, you have 2 cows per day in this box. And on a 240 cow dairy, you have 4 cows per day in this box. So you really want to make this box very, very easy. And this is some top design from our barn design team. Cows come in here, go through here, through the selection room in here, and then so they go in here, through here, and then they go to the food bath here, and then they go automatically out again, or they are selected to the selection room and they can stay here. So full automatic selection from robots is really, really essential. So to summarize, robot milking, I think it's a great invention because it's every day the same for every cow. You have to be trained on stress-free cow handling. You need excellent barn design if you want to reach the maximum labor efficiency and cow comfort. And in the end, you have less mastitis. Thank you very much. I hope to see your questions in the chat box in a minute.
Thank you very much, Jaap. Interesting, a lot of practical tips, very interesting to look at. Thank you very much.
Welcome. I have to stop my screen.
For Sophie.
There you go.
Continue on that topic. Thank you, Sophie, please.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Full screen?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Good evening, everybody. So how to achieve a proper udder health service when your farmers are equipped with a milking robot. Let's continue the topic. First of all, I like to discuss the approach of udder health. Do we see differences in conventional dairy farms and robotic dairy farms? The different reasons for udder health problems between conventional dairy farms and the robotic ones, and then some take-home messages. Let's start with approach udder health. For the people that know me a bit, they know I like structure. So these are always the 4 steps that I follow when I approach udder health issues on a farm. And we start with the problem. What is the problem? Is it clinical mastitis? Is it an increased bulk milk somatic cell count? Then we try to find out what is the cause of the problem. So we can have a high cell count in the bulk milk because of a high percentage of new infections during lactation, but it's also possible that's because of new infections in dry period. And then we have the reason. If we have a high percentage of new infections during lactation, it's possible that we have a high infection pressure, so that the hygiene is not optimal during milking, but it's also possible that a reason is that we have a high infection pressure in between 2 milkings. And then we have the solution, and we try to find the most appropriate solution for a specific reason and cause of another health problem. Well, let's try to apply this on robotic farms. Let's try to see the problem, the cause, the reason, and the solutions. And first of all, the problem. And if we talk about mastitis problems, do you expect different types of other health problems on a robotic farm? Well, we don't. It's also a problem with bulk milk somatic cell count. It's a problem with clinical mastitis. It's a problem with heifer mastitis, but we do not expect a different type of other health issues on robotic farms compared to conventional ones. If we look at the cause of the problem, so for example, new infections during lactation, do we expect their differences? Well, actually not. And we do have some data on that. So what you can see here is the percentage of new infections and the percentage of chronic infections. So using the somatic cell count data, we determined the new infections and chronic infections on, let's say, 60 conventional farms and 50 robotic dairy farms. And as you can see here, we have all farms with a high new infection rate during lactation. So that means above the level of 5%. Here, all these farms do have more than 5% new infections. But you do see the same pattern on robotic dairy farms. So there as well, we do not have a lot of farms with less than 5% new infections per month. And if you look at the farms that achieve a bulk milk somatic cell count below 200,000 cells per ml, then we see that having a high new infection rate is not an issue. You can have a high new infection rate, and still have a low bulk milk somatic cell count. And that's the same on conventional and robotic farms. But which type of farms do get into trouble when it comes to the bulk milk somatic cell count? It are the ones with a high percentage of chronic infections. So animals that get a high cell count and that remain high in cell count. And that's exactly the same on conventional dairy farms and robotic dairy farms. So if you want to approach udder health on a robotic farm, then also start with analysis of the data, just like you do on conventional dairy farms, and that's a first opportunity. A second opportunity is monitoring. The success and the key success factor for a good udder health on dairy farms is follow-up, is monitoring. So every 4 to 6 weeks analysis of the cell count data, clinical mastitis data. We take milk samples of cows with a high cell count in clinical mastitis cases. We interpret the data and we make a decision. Will we wait or will we start treating animals, dry off cows or cull or separate? And as most of the bulk milk somatic cell count issues, both on conventional and robotic farms, are due to too many animals with a chronic high cell count, then this is a great second opportunity on both conventional and robotic farms. Follow up, monitoring, take decisions for cows with a high cell count. But then we have the reason. So we do not expect differences in problem and causes, but we might have some differences in reasons for udder health problems. And here you can see the elements of mastitis and management that play a role on conventional dairy farms. We have the milking technique, milking equipment, lactating cows, dry cows, heifer management, treatment, biosecurity and monitoring. So that are also the elements where we can find the solutions for a better udder health. And here you see the main difference between robotic and conventional farms. On conventional farms, milking technique and milking equipment are separate elements. If we have a look at this diagram on a robotic farm, then we see that milking technique and milking equipment are just in one element, robots. And that's the difference. Lactating cows, dry cows, heifers, that are the same elements that do play a role if you want to achieve a better udder health. But we can also calculate a score. We can determine the risk of contagious mastitis in a robotic farm. So we normally do that for milking technique, but here we can do that also for robots based on the risk factors that are very specific for robots. And we can also determine the risk of environmental mastitis when it comes to robotic milking. But milking technique and milking equipment are just in one element. They are combined. So that brings us to different reasons. The problems are the same, the causes are the same, new infections lactation, new infections dry cows, but we do have some different reasons for those udder health problems. And I will just pinpoint a couple of them. If we think about, for example, risk of contagious mastitis on a conventional farm, then we talk about using one towel per cow so that we don't spread bacteria from one cow to the other. We think about those disinfection of the teat liners so that we don't spread bacteria via the teat liners. And we think about disinfection of hands and wearing gloves. That are the main risk factors for transmission of contagious mastitis pathogens like Staph aureus, for example, on conventional dairy farms. If we now have a look on robotic farms, then we also have a risk during milking. It's also possible that we do have a spread of contagious mastitis pathogens during milking, especially via the teat liners, because we only have one milking unit, one cluster for 60 up till maybe 70 cows. So there is a risk, but we can limit that via steam, via disinfection, and also by an on-time replacement of the teat liners. But on robotic farms, we often see also more milk leakage, cows that leak milk in between two milkings. And there we have exactly the same way of transmission of bacteria. If a cow lays down uncontaminated milk with Staph aureus, then we get also a transfer of those bacteria on the teat skin of the next cow. And milk leaking, that will be more determined by the robot settings, nutrition, and flow health, like Joep already discussed. So disinfection systems can be put on the robot. That's not a problem. You have steam, but you can also use dosatron systems to just make sure that the teat liners are disinfected in between two cows. If we have leaking milk, I just want to give you some figures that should be lower than 4% of the milk of the cows. So that's a third opportunity, of course. Check whether there is an issue with leaking milk in between two milkings. And here you can see some of the reasons for leaking milk. It might be that there is not enough free time available on the robot. So the cows do not like to come to the robot anymore because it's too busy. It's possible that there is not enough circulation. The cows do not like to come to the robot. So here you can see the parameters, the indicators. So it needs to be more than 12 gate passages. If it's free traffic, then you need to have more than 50% of the milkings that are refusals. So the cows come to the robot, but they are refused to be milked. And here you can find some of the reasons why the cows do not like to come to the robot. Cow health issues, the nutrition, and the robot that is not functioning well. It's possible that the cows come to the robot, but that you still not have enough milkings. And you see that you need at least, and that's really a minimum, at least 2.4 milkings per cow per day. That can be due to the fact that the cows do not like to come to the robot, so the circulation is not good enough, but it's also possible that there is an issue with the settings of the robot. The cows come to be milked, but they are not allowed to be milked by the robot. So this can be checked as well. And then, of course, you have the high milking speed. That's more genetic-wise. It's possible that the cows are also more susceptible to leak milk in between two milkings. But at least these parameters, the robot free time, the circulation, and the number of milkings can be easily checked in every robot system. So don't hesitate to do that. Then if we talk about environmental mastitis, then we have the teat cleanliness is always important. How clean are the teat ends before the milking cluster is attached? And we want to have at least 80% of the teats with score 1 or score 2. In conventional systems, we can improve the teat cleanliness by, for example, pre-foaming and put more attention on the cleaning of the teat end before cluster attachment. On conventional farms, it's not possible to do the teat cleanliness condition scoring. That takes too much time, so you need to find another way. And there is another way. You can use the udder hygiene score. So here you can see udder hygiene score 1, 8%, 46% is udder hygiene score 2. That's actually pretty low. So only 54% score 1 and score 2. But I must say that it's also my experience that it seems to be much more difficult to achieve a good udder hygiene score on robotic farms than on conventional farms. And then you have 38% score 3 and 8% score 4. They try to look at the correlation between the udder hygiene score and the number of dirty teats. And you see the higher the udder hygiene score, the more dirty teats per udder. So you can use the udder hygiene score to get an impression of the teat cleanliness of the number of dirty teats. And another way you can do it on robotic farms is via the milk filter socket. So what we always do is 5 days or 3 days before we visit the farm, we ask them to collect the milk filters and we evaluate the milk filters. And it will also help you to find out if there is an issue with the detection of clinical mastitis. If you find clots on the milk filter, then it means that they miss a lot of clinical mastitis cases, and that might also be already an issue or a reason for a high cell count on the farm. So detection of clinical mastitis is not so easy either on robotic farms if you compare it with conventional ones. So here you can find some reasons why the milk filter socket is too dirty. That's a fourth opportunity. Dare to ask for the milk filter socket and have a look at it. It's possible if they work with brushes that they are not replaced on time. So they need to be replaced every 30,000 milkings at least. It's possible that the hydrogen peroxide is not working. So there is no disinfection of the brushes or it's too diluted, so we need a concentration of at least or in between 0.4 and 0.6%, and that needs to be tested twice a week. It's possible that the udder and lower leg hygiene score are too bad, so that's hygiene in the barn. It's possible that the teeth liners are not replaced on time, and it's also possible that the robot and the parts, the different elements of the robot, are not cleaned enough, and that needs to be done at least 2 times a day. But it all starts with evaluation. Ask the milk filter sockets and evaluate the hygiene. That's a fourth opportunity. And then we have teeth end condition, like Joep already said, normally we do not expect troubles and problems with the teeth end condition on robotic farms. Normally, that's what you see here as well. We investigated teeth in condition on 50 robotic farms. And as you can see, the majority has a score 1. So we don't expect a lot of problems. That's also why we put the limit at 90%. So 90% of the teeth need to have a score 1 or 2 on robotic farms. If you have a bit of a doubt, it's time to have a look and to check what is going on. It's not normal to have hyperkeratosis and teeth in condition score 3 and 4 on robotic farms. And here you can find some of the reasons. That's the fifth opportunity. Check the functioning of the robot. So if you see that the teeth in condition score is not satisfied, so that means that you have more than 10% of the teeth with score 3 or 4, then a dynamic testing of the robot needs to be done. It's also possible that the robot is set to milk in a very efficient way. And we sometimes see it that we have a very short box time, so they are milked very fast. Preparation time is very short, high milk speed, high vacuum, all to have a higher capacity of the robot. That's fine. That's not a problem. But if you have a poor teeth in condition score, then at least this needs to be investigated. It's also possible, again, that the teeth liners are not replaced on time. And it's possible that the post-milking teeth disinfection is not working. Like Joep said, it's not only important to disinfect the teeth and to protect the teeth, but it's also important to keep the teeth skin soft. And if you have a soft teeth skin, then the teeth are less vulnerable for all kinds of lesions and also for the effects of the milking machine. So also check the post-milking teeth disinfection. And you see, for example, here that the teeth skin is quite dry. So that might also be due to the fact that either the post-milking teeth disinfection is not working well, or because it's a product that causes teeth skin lesions. So it's also possible that not the product that they should use is not used, so that you get just not a very good spraying on the teeth skin. So some take-home messages. The approach of robotic dairy farm is not that much different compared to conventional dairy farms. The problem and the causes are the same. It's just a bit in the reasons that you can find differences in evaluation of mastitis management. As Joep said, the barn becomes very important. Also, claw health is extremely important, and so on. And it's also to find out where you need to put focus on. But if you know what indicators you have to look at, then it makes life easier. Opportunity 1, analyze the available data as you would do on conventional dairy farms. Monitoring is the key to success, to have a good udder health on both conventional and robotic farms, including bacteriological culturing, because it can give you an indication whether you're dealing with conventional or environmental mastitis. Determine the risk of spread of contagious mastitis, so milk leakage is an important indicator as well. Determine the infection pressure, the milk filter socket, the hygiene of the milk filter socket is important, and determine the teeth in condition. And if you do already those things, then you will have a high chance that you can solve the problem. Thank you very much, and also thank you to Vetoquinol for this Achieve Better Milk Together campaign.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you very much. We will take some questions, but first I need to apologize because we had a problem with the Italian translation. So I've been informed during the webinar that the Italian attendees could not hear the translation. We are very sorry for that.
My Italian is not very good, so I can't help you either. One thing I like to say was about the question for Sophie is and people, if you have more questions, please type them in now. There's only a few questions I saw, but if you have any questions, type them please in. One question, Sophie, is about the settings. You say 6.5 or 7.5 minutes. The American setting, do you recommend it or not? They say the American setting, there's different types of cleaning udders, but there was one with the brushes, and it has some practical tips. If you have an extra pair of brushes, you can wash them in your washing machine. So just make sure you have 2 pairs of brushes. You can even change them on a weekly basis, even more often if you would like. And the other tip was, if you do the American settings, you first decontaminate, take off the dirt from the udder, and then you wash them again with some peroxide, and then you do a disinfection on the teeth. So, but that takes 10 seconds extra, I think, is it?
Yeah, yes, it is. And I eliminated, I have the slide, but I eliminated it because of time. But it's also not only for cleaning. The reason that they have that American system is also because they have seen from Lely in 20% of the cows that you have bimodal curves. So that you really have a too short brushing time to have a stimulation that is good enough to eject milk and to have a good milk evacuation. But like you already mentioned, I like it, but the problem is, of course, that it takes longer. And if you look at some robots, what you need to do is especially have a look at your free time. If that is already close to 15 or even below 15%, then it might not be a good it might not be a good suggestion to go for the American system, because then you increase again the brushing time, you will decrease the free time, and that will have a negative effect on your circulation of animals. So it's a bit finding the balance, the equilibrium. But I must also say, Joep, that the robots become more efficient. So normally we use the 6.5, 7.5 minutes box time as a standard. But if robots become more efficient because it's easier to find the teeth and so on and so on, then it's possible that you have a lower box time without issues either. So that's why it's important to check teeth in condition, teeth abnormalities, and from there on, you can try to find the solution.
Yeah, very interesting. So 20% had a bimodal curve. That means that there was not enough time between touching and attaching and start sucking. So after they do the American system, you see that figure is less. They have a better flow.
Yeah, and I have seen it in practice as well. Yeah, really increase incidence of clinical mastitis. Then you check teeth in condition, there is a problem. Then they adapt the brushing time. And they do the American system, and you really see also the amount of milk that can be harvested per milking is much higher than per minute. You really see a difference. It's better, but of course you need time and space on your robot.
On my farm where we have 180 cows and 3 robots, and he's a very high production. He put it in, but now he has only 9% free time, and now he's struggling with less milking. So
then you have
to find a new balance, or less cows. But no farmer wants to have less cows. It's always an issue. Stefan.
Yes, we have a few questions. So the first question was, we have a quick one about the cow seniors books. Would they be available in Polish first?
Yes, we have most languages now available, especially for the basics. So cowsignals.com, they can find it on my website.
So the second one was in Italian, but I got the translation. So in automatic milking, a handicap is that during the first milking, some machines do not wash the teeth correctly because they do not have the teeth position history, which happens after the first milking. So the milk from the first milking can often result in a high bacterial load. Have you also experienced that problem, Joep?
Sorry, I missed the essential. Well, say it again. It was a Polish question about the first milking. Maybe Sophie can answer it.
No,
it's for Joep, but
no, it's in Italian. It's
I understand.
The first milking can often result in a high bacterial load because the machine don't have the teeth location history.
Yes.
So
that's true. That's why we say we have to do the mini milker thing in the cuddle box, because very many people, they just put the robot under the cow, the first milking, and they don't do the udder cleaning because the robot doesn't do the cleaning in most robots. In some robots where the cleaning is in the teat cup, they still do it because then, but normally they start milking right away with most robots. And that means that they have dirty teats milked, and then the colostrum is full of bacteria. And that's another reason that you want them to be separately milked with the baby in front of them. So there's like 6-7 reasons to do that cuddle box system. And we just put out a newsletter. You can find it in our social medias. But it's very interesting about the calcium cuddle box. Why should you do it? And one reason is that you have better quality colostrum, more colostrum, and more live cells from the own mother protecting the baby. And you have less bacteria because you can do a better job cleaning when you do it manually and you do the normal routine with a towel, clean it, and gloves and milk it on the spot. But you need a very good working facility so that position of your cuddle box next to the straw yard should be also a very nice farm kitchen where you have warm water for the cow to feed with some extra salt and sugar in it. Smells good. And you have to have clean hands and clean udders. And you need 80 degrees water to clean the teat cups right after milking, that you have the mini milker also on a high level cleaned. Yeah.
Okay. Next question is, what takeoff settings do you recommend in robotic milking?
Well, that's a good question. I think it's a bit different than normal milk bars, Sophie. It's more...
Yeah, and in my opinion, there is no straightforward answer either, because you have all kind of different systems that the last quarter is detached faster than the quarter that is not yet empty is detached faster. You have all kind of different systems. The best is to start with teeth in condition and abnormalities. So the short-term abnormalities after milking, that's blue teeth, rings, and so on. And then if you have doubts, to do dynamic testing and see what happens. And of course, if you see that the box time is long, that can be due to the fact that the automatic cluster removal settings is not set very well, but it's not so straightforward in robotic milking systems.
But in a normal parlor, you do it in the main milk line when it goes below 200 cc per minute. Is it? What's the normal?
No. Nowadays we are at 400. 400. In a two times milking 400, and in a 3 times milking even 600 or even 800. Yeah. So they really increased that. Yeah.
But the robot, they do it by every quarter separately, and they have the settings on 50 or what, or what?
No, it will not be like that. I don't even know that you can say it's set like that. It's often also based on percentages and so on. So it's not so easy, and it depends from brand to brand. Yeah.
And if you milk
what I also want to add, you can also do the strip cup test, so that you milk max 100 cc per quarter in let's say max 15 strips by hand. If you can manage to milk out more milk, then it might also be an indication that there is too much rest milk. And that
so there should only be maximum 100 cc left, like just a half a cup. If there's more coming out, you know it didn't do a good job. I know a lot of robot farms having trouble, and then the robot was just doing something wrong on one quarter and had serious mastitis on the back right quarters. And then you think, well, how can that be? And it must be a robot issue. And then they say, no. And in the end, it was actually something on the robot. So real things happen, guys. And if you're a vet, just trust your own observations. And if you see that, you have to really take actions, because the machine has to do what it's told, and that's not always the case. And it can just have one line squeeze or something happening technically, even in the software, things can go wrong, that one quarter is not milked out very well. So that's a very good tip, the strip test. Yeah.
So the next question is, where are located the milk filter sockets on the robotic system?
Well, just the same way like they are in conventional ones, just before the milk is entering the tank. But if I find them, it's or the farmer collect them or it's in the garbage can. So I never take them myself. It's either there. Just one thing I want to tell you, in Delaval, I don't really know how to explain in English, but the filter is on the inside. So don't evaluate the cleanliness on the outside. You have to cut it with a scissor so that you can see what is on the inside, because otherwise you will say, oh, it's always clean, but the dirt can be on the inside. Yeah. But the farmer knows where to find, but we asked them beforehand, because you don't do it on one milk filter socket either. So we asked them a couple of days before we go. We say, from now on, can you collect the milk filter? And then we have a look at 6, 7, up till 10 milk filters. Yeah.
So next question is in from the chat, because there are questions in the chat as well. So do you advise cows are in cubicles or on straw bedding?
Well, actually, if you want to have resting time, you need soft beds, and it can be sand, straw, or dried manure remnants. And the average farm has 30% mastitis. The average well-managed farm has 3% mastitis. So there's a tenfold too much mastitis if you do the wrong thing. It's mainly management, but it's also housing, and you can only make the good choice for housing once. So we highly recommend deep-bedded barns, deep-bedded cubicles, and that's first of all discussion. No mats, but deep beds, because in general they rest 3 to 4 hours longer per day, and that's why they are more healthy, and you get more milk. And on a sand-bedded barn, you have the best results, but you can't do it in an existing barn. So if you want to have less mastitis, you have to have better beds. That's one thing. The other thing is that in Berlin University did a great research on deep straw beds. They said the worst and the best farms had deep straw beds for cell count and mastitis. It was a research from Berlin University where they saw like extremely good cell counts and extremely bad cell counts with exactly the same system. So that tells you everything about the management. It's not the system, it's the management. So if you have a very dirty farmer and you know all what I'm talking about, like 25% of your farms are not really very good in hygiene, so they probably should not even milk cows. That's another discussion. But on the other hand, if they still do, you better have to advise them to take a simple system that they can manage, because for these farmers, a water bed is a better solution than a deep bed. And because they're never going to fill the beds in time, and then a deep bed is even worse. But I would like to give them the option. If you want to have 3 liters more milk, you have to go for deep beds. If you really want to go for a water bed, you already decide that you have 1.5 liter less milk. If you decide for a mat, you really already decided you have 3 liters less milk than a deep bed. So that's your choice. Another farm I just saw pictures from Argentina was a full sand barn. We have now in Holland 3 sand barns, like cow beaches, and they're gonna clean the top layer. It's a new system from Hanskamp, the Netherlands, and they clean the top layer. But it's risky, because how good can you clean the top layer twice a day? And the other system is the compost barns, where you compost, where you have to cultivate the manure and the top layer with sawdust and manure. And that can also work very well for 8,000 liter cows, but not so well for 12,000 liter cows, because they produce a lot of manure and a lot of urine. And that's why these bedding systems of free rangings are very good for an average 8,000 liters, but not so good for 12,000 liters. So that's my opinion.
Okay, next question. Do you recommend to increase the time of brush preparation in AMS to prevent bimodality?
Yes,
Yeah, we talked about
like we
that.
discussed, yes, indeed. But be careful, check your free time. Because that's an important one as well, and needs to be at least higher than 10% and even preferably 15%. And that can become an issue if you increase the pressure.
And how many seconds is the difference between first touch and I remember our timing robots. What is average first touch and start sucking in robots, you know?
It will be, I think, 30 seconds, 40.
Yeah, a lot less,
like that.
30 to 40. And we normally, that's why.
But of course, they are less. There is less pressure onto it as well. It's a different kind of milking and so on. So yeah.
Yeah. So probably it's good enough, but you can see it on the bimodal curve. So still with 20%, it was not good enough. So it's quite interesting observation. Yeah.
I've got another question. Is what management do you recommend to dry off in AMS?
Well, the dry off is that's a good one. It's a very big variety, but I like to hear Sophie's opinion as well. But we recommend, what I see mostly is we still milk them twice a day. We give them dry cow feed. We still milk them twice a day. That's the least risk. We have excellent clean beds in the selection room, and we have them 5 days on dry cow feed, and on the 6th day we dry them off with teat sealers normally, and without antibiotic if the cell count is below 150,000.
Yeah, that's a good approach, and it adapts a bit itself, of course. If they are getting less concentrates in the robot, then they will produce less milk. If they produce less milk, they will come less to the robot. But indeed, you give them access still 2 times a day, but it's not for sure that they will come 2 days. But in a robot, normally it's not an issue to get them dry. It's much better or easier. Yeah.
Well, we see also that we turn back the concentrate in the last 3 weeks before we select them for the dry off group. And you turn it back, but then you have to start catching them sometimes. So then they end up in the selection room anyway for less labor. But you see the 5 days normally works. And some people say, well, we skip 1 milking, then we skip 2 milkings, and then it goes even faster. But what do you think? Is that more risk for mastitis? You would expect it's a bit more risky. It depends on your housing.
Yeah, it surely depends on the housing, because I remember 20 years ago that they said never go for intermittent milking, never. And nowadays, we have enough examples that show it's possible, but most probably it depends on the risk cows have to become infected in between 2 milkings. If it's dirty and they become infected, milking is also a flushing, and you get rid of the bacteria. So most probably the success depends on the housing and hygiene.
Yeah. Well, naturally, some cows go for 12 or 18 hours milking interval, and that's no problem. But if you have them behind the robot, most farmers do them twice to the robot to make sure they're milked. And sometimes they do it once on the end, which can probably work as well. And one thing is very good airflow. We see that still 90% of the barns in the world is not well enough aired. You want to have 1 meter per second everywhere. That's not a tip for all the vets listening. You just throw a little bit dust up in the air, and you see if it falls down a meter away from you. That means that there's a meter airflow, and that's in very few buildings that's the case. And if there's no natural ventilation from wind, which is 10% of the time you have no wind in every country, then you really need fans. And we recommend fans also in these dead corners behind robots. The first place to put a fan is on these areas where you dry off the cows. So make sure the beds are dry and clean.
Okay, we had also a question about have you noticed any failures to detect teats because they are crossed?
Yeah,
Yes,
a lot.
I believe so.
Yeah. Yes, and actually, if you think about it, I don't know a lot of farms that do it, but if you plan to make the transfer to a robot, people should start way beforehand, because you have not only the cross teats to have more similar udders, so that it's easy also to find it, but it's also the fact that you need animals with quite some enthusiasm to go to the robot. There is also a difference in character of animals. You have fast animals, you have slow ones. Yeah, so actually you should start way beforehand to select on these characteristics as well, if you want to have or avoid problems as much as possible. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. Thank you, Sophie. In case of problems due to contagious germs, up to what concentration of peroxide would you recommend without causing negative consequences on the teat?
Yeah, not go too high, 0.25, 0.3%, because I have seen it on a farm that had issues with mastitis, and he increased the concentration, and then the cows didn't want to come anymore. Maybe because of the smell, but also because of irritation that it might cause. So we know that 0.25, 0.3, if you take swaps, you clearly see a difference, and you can expect a reduction in pathogens in the teat lineage of 95 till 95 till 19 to 95%. But you hear me saying it's a percent. So if you have a high infection pressure, after 90% reduction, you can still have a lot of bacteria. So all depends on your initial infection pressure, but don't go higher than 0.25, 0.3. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We still have a few questions in the chat and in the Q&A section, but we are over the time now. So we need to close
maybe
and...
one Stefan, the last one. There was a question about the settings. I think a fresh cow should go 5 times a day. But what would be the max? Because some fresh cows have 70 liters, and normally we like every 10 liters to go out for the pressure in the udder. So every 10 liters milking. So the fresh cows 4, 5, or 6 times. So would the interval be 4 hours or 6 hours? What do you think, Sophie? 6 times milking is too much? The teats are not surviving it anymore.
Yeah, it's quite, or it must be that you can adapt the settings cow per cow when it comes to automatic cluster remover or whatever, but 6 times is really a lot.
Yeah.
If there are no problems, I'm always a bit pragmatic in that way. You start, most of the time we try to find a solution, but we don't know if there is a problem. So I like to start with the problem and then see if there is a solution. The opposite way. So that's why I've really focused, do a teeth and condition scoring in different groups of animals. Look at the teeth abnormalities after milking. So what we do to have the short-term changes in teeth condition, so the rings and the blue teeth, that's really ask the farmer 1 hour before your arrival, depending on the size of the separation box, to separate the animals so that you can clearly see if there are issues. And if you see them, I would not go for 6 milkings a day. Or...
No, 5 is enough for fresh cows. And if you want to save time, cows that only have 20 liters, you can turn them back to 2 visits. They know they don't have to go, and they don't get so much concentrate. Depends a bit on your feeding. So that's another issue. If you have priority feeding, the feeding takes also time. So an out-of-parlor feeding machine can really help to reduce the pressure in the robot, or you just put more on the TMR. What they do in some countries, they have very rich TMR. One of the top farms in Finland is only feeding 2 kilos for every cow, always in the robot, very flat rate, and he gets amazing results with it. So many things are possible. Sorry, Stefan, I think we have to stop talking.
Thank you again, Sophie. Thank you again, Joop. It's time to close that webinar. Again, I'm sorry for not having time to answer all questions. We'll make sure that you will get an answer before in the coming days. Again, sincere apologize for our Italian attendees with the problem with the translation. And we'll see you probably in the next year. So stay tuned, and hopefully we'll be delighted to have you again. Thank you for your participation to all.
Thank you very much. Hope to see you soon in 2024. Thank you, Sophie.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye, Europe.
Bye-bye.
Keep up the good work, all the vets.